everyone, it's Sarah here. And welcome back to Super English Talks. I'm so glad you've joined me today. Because we're going to talk about something that I know a lot of you have wished for at some point in your life: reading faster. I mean, think about it. We live in a time when information is everywhere. Articles pop up on your phone all day. Emails are waiting for you every morning. There are books you want to read, reports you need to finish, and maybe even language learning. Materials you're trying to get through. And sometimes it just feels like there aren't enough hours in the day to read it all. Wouldn't it be great if you could go through all that reading material faster without losing the meaning or enjoyment? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today. I'm not here to sell you some magical promise that you'll suddenly be able to read 1,000 words minute by tomorrow. No, this is going to be a real practical conversation about how you can train yourself to read faster, understand more, and even enjoy the process. I want you to walk away from this talk feeling like speed reading isn't some mysterious talent that only a few people are born with. Instead, it's something you can start improving today, step by step. Let's start with something important. A lot of people have heard about speed reading, but have also heard myths about it. You know, the ones that you can glance at a page for a second and instantly understand every single detail. Or that you can read a huge novel like War and Peace in an hour and remember every character's name. Well, those myths might sound exciting, but in reality, reading is a process that involves your eyes, your brain, and your focus. And no matter how fast your eyes move, your brain still needs to process the meaning. So, when I talk about speed reading today, I'm not talking about skipping over everything or just guessing what the text says. I'm talking about a balanced approach, moving your eyes more efficiently, reducing habits that slow you down, and learning techniques that help you take in more words at a time, while still understanding them. The very first thing we have to talk about is focus. Focus is the foundation of reading speed. If you're distracted, it doesn't matter what techniques you use, your speed will slow down and your comprehension will drop. Have you ever tried reading while your phone keeps lighting up with messages, or when there's noise around you, or even when your mind is busy thinking about your to-do list? You might notice your eyes moving across the page, but your brain isn't absorbing much.
Right.
Then you have to go back and reread, which just wastes time. So, the first step is creating a reading environment where you can really focus. For me, that means finding a quiet spot, turning my phone to silent mode, and even telling people around me, "Hey, I'm reading for the next 20 minutes, so please don't interrupt." It also means dealing with those internal distractions, those random thoughts that pop up in your head. One trick I use is keeping a little notepad next to me. If a thought comes up like, "Oh, I need to send that email later. I just write it down and get back to reading. K. My brain knows I won't forget it. K. And I can return to the text without worrying. Once you've got your focus in place. The next thing to think about is a habit many of us have without even realizing. Subvocalization. That's the fancy term for the little voice in your head that says each word as you read. We all learned to read by sounding out words, and that habit stays with us. But the truth is, your brain can understand words much faster than your inner voice can speak them. If you say every word in your head, you're basically limiting your reading speed to your speaking speed. And that's a big speed limit now. I'm not saying you can completely get rid of subvocalization, and honestly, for difficult texts, it can help comprehension. But you can reduce it. One way is to keep your eyes moving and avoid pausing too long on each word. Another way is to use a visual guide, like your finger or a pen, to lead your eyes along the line. This keeps your pace steady and makes it harder for that inner voice to slow you down. Some people also chew gum or lightly tap their fingers while reading. The extra rhythm distracts the voice in your head and encourages your brain to process the words visually instead of auditorily. Another important technique is something called chunking or clustering. Most people read word by word, but that's not how our brains work best. Our brains are great at recognizing patterns. So if you train yourself to see groups of words at once, you can read faster and understand more. For example, instead of reading the cat, set on, they, mat one word at a time. You see the cat sat as one chunk and on the mat as another. Over time, you can increase your chunk size so that each glance captures more of the sentence. And here's something I want to make clear. Reading faster isn't just about speed. It's also about comprehension. If you read faster but don't remember anything, then what's the point? That's why previewing a text before you read it can be so powerful. Spend a minute looking at headings, subheadings, and the first sentence of each paragraph. This gives your brain a roadmap of what's coming. So when you actually start reading, it's easier to fit new information into the bigger picture. There's also the strategy of skimming, not as a replacement for careful reading. A tool when you need the main points quickly. When skimming, you're not reading every word. You're looking for key words, phrases, and topic sentences that carry the meaning. This is great for emails, reports, or when you're reviewing something you've already read once before. Now you might be wondering, does speed reading really make that much difference? The answer is yes, not just in terms of time saved, but in mental energy. If you can process information more quickly, you have more time and energy left for thinking, analyzing, and applying what you've learned. Speed reading can also boost your focus because it forces you to stay engaged with the text. And some research suggests that it can improve your brain's flexibility and even your memory. Since you're actively training it to process and recall information more efficiently, of course, practice is the key. You can't just try these techniques once and expect a miracle. Learning a musical instrument or a new sport, it's all about repetition. Start by timing yourself. See how many words you can read in a minute, and then set small goals to improve. Do short daily practice sessions where you focus on one technique at a time. Maybe today you work on reducing subvocalization. Tomorrow, you focus on chunking. Over time, you'll notice your habits changing naturally. I also encourage you to be flexible. Not every text requires the same speed. You're reading a simple news article. You can go faster. If you're reading a complex scientific paper, you might slow down. The goal is to have the skills to adjust your speed depending on the material. Asterisk. And please remember, this isn't about rushing through books just to say you've read them. Reading is still about enjoyment, discovery, and understanding. Faster you can read while still enjoying the material, the more you'll get out of it. That's the sweet spot. I want you to imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and you have 10 unread emails from work. 3 news articles you've saved to read later. A couple of chapters in your current book that you want to finish. And, oh, that online course you're doing also has a 20-page PDF for today's lesson. You could spend the whole day reading and still not be done. That's the world we live in now. A world of constant reading demands. So wouldn't it be amazing if you could get through all that reading faster, but still understand and remember what you read? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Before we start, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not here to tell you that you'll suddenly be able to read an entire novel in 10 minutes, or that you'll become some superhuman book-scanning machine overnight. That's not realistic, and it's not what real speed reading is about. What I want to share with you is a set of skills and habits that, over time, will help you read faster, with more focus, and with better comprehension. It's about efficiency, not just speed.
Let's begin by addressing some common myths about speed reading, because I think this is important before we go into the how. One myth is that you can read every single word on a page in a fraction of a second and fully understand it. You've probably seen those flashy advertisements promising you'll go from reading 200 words a minute to 2,000. And sure, they might teach you to move your eyes faster. But if you're not actually understanding the words, then what's the point? It's like watching a movie on fast forward. You might get the basic idea, but you miss all the details and emotions that make it meaningful. Another myth is that speed reading means skipping words or even skipping entire sentences. Now, yes, there are moments when you can skim certain parts of a text, but that's not the same as ignoring large chunks of information. The goal isn't to cheat your way through a book. It's to train your brain and eyes to work more efficiently together so you can take in information in a way that feels natural but faster than before. Now that we've cleared that up, let's talk about the foundation of faster reading: focus. Focus is your best friend when it comes to reading speed. Think about the last time you tried to read while you were distracted. Maybe your phone buzzed. Maybe you were hungry. Maybe the TV was on in the background. Or maybe your mind was just somewhere else entirely. How many times did you read the same sentence over and over before it finally made sense? Distractions. Reading speed. And they destroy comprehension. That's why your first step in reading faster isn't actually about moving your eyes faster. It's about creating a reading environment that lets you fully focus. For me, that means choosing a quiet spot, turning off notifications, and making sure I'm comfortable. I also like to set a clear goal before I start. If I'm reading a book for pleasure, my goal might be to read 3 chapters. If I'm reading for work, my goal might be to finish a report and understand the key points. Having a goal keeps my mind engaged and less likely to wander. But here's another challenge. Even if you remove external distractions like noise and notifications, there are still internal distractions. I'm talking about the thoughts in your own head. Have you ever been reading and suddenly realized you're thinking about dinner or an errand you forgot to do? Your eyes are moving, but your brain isn't paying attention. One trick that works for me is keeping a notepad nearby. If a thought pops up that has nothing to do with my reading, I jot it down quickly so I can deal with it later, and then I go back to my reading. It's like telling your brain, I've got this covered. Now, let's get back to work. Your focus is under control. The next thing to address is subvocalization. That's the term for the habit of silently speaking each word in your head as you read. We all do it to some extent because that's how we learn to read. Sounding out words? The problem is that your brain can process words much faster than your inner voice can say them. So if you subvocalize every single word, you're limiting your reading speed to the speed at which you speak. You can't completely eliminate subvocalization, and for difficult texts, it can even help. But you can reduce it so it doesn't slow you down. One way to do this is to keep your eyes moving steadily along the page using a visual guide like your finger or a pen. This helps train your eyes to read in phrases instead of single words. Another trick is to occupy that inner voice with something else, like quietly humming, chewing gum, or even counting in your head as you read. These small distractions keep your brain from saying each word and encourage it to process the meaning visually instead. This leads us to a key technique for faster reading: chunking. Most people read word by word, but your brain is actually better at recognizing patterns and phrases. Chunking is when you train your eyes to see groups of words at once. You might focus on 2 or 3 words at a time. As you practice, you can expand to 4, 5, or more. For example, instead of reading "the wet hair was warm and sunny," you might read "the weather was as one chunk and warm and sunny as another." Over time, Chunking helps you read faster and improves comprehension because you're taking in ideas instead of just words. But remember, speed means nothing without comprehension. One way to boost comprehension while reading faster is to preview the text before you dive in. Look at the headings, subheadings, and the first sentence of each paragraph. This gives your brain a framework for what's coming, so when you read, you already have a mental map. Another way is to pause occasionally and summarize what you've read in your own words, either silently or out loud. This active recall strengthens your memory and ensures you're not just seeing words but actually absorbing their meaning. Now, sometimes you don't need to read every single detail. It's where skimming comes in. Skimming is a technique for finding the main points quickly. Focus on keywords, phrases, and topic sentences rather than every word. This is great for getting the gist of an article or reviewing something you've already read. Skimming isn't a replacement for deep reading, but it's a valuable tool when speed is more important than detail. One of the best parts of learning to read faster is the long-term benefit. Yes, you save time, but you also train your brain to stay focused for longer periods. You build mental stamina, and you create more opportunities to read because when reading feels easier and faster, you're more likely to do it. Plus, the more you read, the more your vocabulary grows, and the better your comprehension becomes. It's a positive cycle. Of course, all of this takes practice. Start by measuring your current reading speed. Just time yourself for 1 minute and count the words you read. Then work on one technique at a time. Maybe this week you focus on chunking. Next week, you practice reducing subvocalization. Little by little, your habits will change and your speed will improve. Also, be flexible. Not all texts are created equal. A simple blog post can be read quickly. A dense academic paper might require you to slow down. A novel you're reading for pleasure might be enjoyed at a slower pace to savor the language. Speed reading isn't about rushing through everything. It's about having the skills to adapt your speed to the situation. And above all, don't lose sight of why you read in the first place. Reading is about understanding, learning, and enjoying. The faster you can read while still understanding and enjoying, the better. But if you ever feel like you're just rushing and not appreciating the words, it's okay to slow down. The mechanics of speed reading. The science behind it. Truly read faster. You have to understand what's happening in your brain and eyes when you read. Reading isn't a simple, smooth process. Your eyes actually jump across the page in a series of tiny movements called fixations. Your eyes pause for a fraction of a second on a word or a group of words, and that's when your brain processes the information. Then, they jump to the next point of fixation. The key to speed reading is to make these fixations more efficient. We can do this in 3 main ways: by increasing our words per fixation, by minimizing subvocalization, and by eliminating regressions. First, let's talk about increasing words per fixation. The average person can only see and process 1 to 2 words with each fixation. To read faster, We need to train our eyes to take in more information at once. We're not just reading words, we're processing chunks of meaning. For example, instead of reading the tall brown dog, we can train our eyes to see the tall brown dog as a single unit. This is a skill that can be developed with practice. And it's one of the most powerful ways to increase your reading speed. Second, we need to tackle subvocalization. This is the habit of saying the words in your head as you read them. It's like having a little narrator in your brain. While this is how we first learn to read, it's a major bottleneck for speed. The voice in your head can only read as fast as you can speak, which is typically between 150 and 200 words per minute. But your brain can process information much faster than that. Subvocalization is a huge obstacle, and by minimizing it, you can unlock a higher reading speed. Third, we need to minimize regressions. Our regressions are those times when our eyes backtrack and reread words or sentences. Sometimes we do this consciously because we didn't understand something. But often, it's an unconscious habit that slows us down. By training our eyes to move forward through the text in a more rhythmic way, we can significantly reduce these unnecessary movements. Understanding these three mechanics is the foundation of effective speed reading. Now, let's talk about how. We can put this knowledge into practice with some real, actionable techniques.
Effective speed reading techniques, practical methods. Now that we know the science, let's dive into the practical techniques that will help you read faster and more effectively. 1. Create a reading sanctuary and master your focus. This might sound simple, but it's one of the most fundamental elements of speed reading. You have to eliminate distractions. When you're reading, your focus is a finite resource. Every time you get a notification from your phone or an email pings on your computer, you lose a little bit of that focus. Actionable step. Before you start reading, silence your phone, close unnecessary browser tabs, and find a quiet, comfortable space where you won't be interrupted. The next level. You also need to deal with internal distractions, like that mental to-do list. One helpful strategy is to have a piece of paper nearby. When a distracting thought pops into your head, just jot it down quickly so you can release it from your mind and get back to your reading. This is about turning reading into a mindful practice, a time to fully engage with the text. Point 2. Break the subvocalization habit. Remember that little voice in your head. It's time to silence it. This is a challenge because it's a deep-seated habit, but it's not impossible. Actionable step. One technique that might surprise you is to chew gum or hum softly while you read. This works wonders for distracting that inner voice because your brain can't easily perform both tasks at the same time. Another technique. You can also try counting in your head or gently tapping your fingers on the table. The goal is to give your brain something else to focus on besides the sound of the words. These small actions disrupt the subvocalization cycle and can significantly increase your reading speed. 3. Use a visual guide to control your eye movements, as we discussed. Your eyes make tiny jumps across the page. To read faster, we need to make those movements more rhythmic and controlled. Actionable step. Use a visual guide, like a pen or your finger, to smoothly guide your eyes across the page. This doesn't mean you're using the guide to follow every single word. Instead, you're using it to set a pace and a rhythm for your eyes to follow. The next level. As you get more comfortable with this, you can start using a technique called instead of just going straight across each line, you use a sweeping S-shaped motion down the page. Imagine starting slightly to the left of the first word, sweeping diagonally down towards the middle of the line, and then curving back up towards the right margin. This continuous flowing motion helps minimize regressions and keeps your eyes moving forward through the text. 4. Practice chunking to increase words per fixation. This is about training your eyes to see more than one word at a time. The more words you can process in a single glance, the faster you will read. Actionable step. Start by practicing with an easy text. Use your visual guide, but instead of focusing on a single word, try to focus on 2 to 3 words at a time. The next level. As you get better, you can gradually increase the number of words you take in with each glance. You'll find that your brain starts to recognize entire phrases as meaningful units of information. This isn't just about speed. It also improves comprehension because you're focusing on the meaning of phrases rather than individual words. Like seeing the forest, not just the trees. The benefits of speed reading. More than just speed, learning to read faster is a powerful skill. 8. But it's not just about speed. The benefits extend far beyond your reading ability and can have a positive impact on your cognitive function and overall learning. 1. Improved comprehension and retention. This is often the biggest concern for people when they think about speed reading. If I read faster, won't I understand less? The opposite is often true. By reading faster, you're forced to focus on the key ideas and the overall message of the text. You have less time to get bogged down in small, unimportant details. Actionable step. Use active recall to boost your comprehension. After you finish a section or a chapter, pause and try to summarize the key points in your own words, either mentally or in writing. This forces your brain to work harder to retrieve the information, which ultimately strengthens your memory. You can also ask yourself questions about the material or create mental images to visualize the concepts. 2. Enhanced focus and cognitive function. The techniques we've discussed, such as eliminating distractions and training your eyes to move in a rhythmic way, are a kind of mental workout. They force your brain to focus more intently and to process information more efficiently. This focused practice can have a positive spillover effect into other areas of your life. You may find that you can concentrate better on other tasks and that your mind feels sharper and more agile. 3. The ability to preview for faster understanding. Sometimes you don't need to read an entire text word for word. Maybe you're looking for a specific piece of information or just trying to get the main idea. This is where the skill of previewing or skimming comes in. Actionable step before you dive into a text. Take a few minutes to preview it. Read the title, the headings, the subheadings, and maybe the first and last sentences of each paragraph. This gives you a mental framework for the information, like having a map before you start a road trip. When you do start reading, you'll know what to look for, which makes the information easier to absorb and retain. Consistency is key. Making it a habit. All of these techniques are great in theory, but they are useless without consistent practice. Speed reading is a skill, just like learning a musical instrument or a new language. You can't expect to become a superhero overnight. Actionable step. Dedicate a small amount of time each day to focused practice. Even just 15 or 20 minutes a day can lead to significant improvements over time. You can set a timer and see how many words you can read in a minute, aiming to beat your score each time. Turning it into a challenge can make it more motivating. The next level. Remember to be patient with yourself. You will hit plateaus, and you may feel frustrated at times. The key is to celebrate the small, incremental wins. Notice those moments when you effortlessly glide through a page a bit faster, or when you grasp a complex concept more easily. It's about focusing on the progress, not just the end goal. The beauty of these techniques is that they can be learned by anyone at any age. With the right approach and dedication, you can absolutely level up your reading game. By training your eyes, your brain, and your mindset, you can become a more efficient, intentional, and adaptable reader. This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of speed reading. I hope you've gained some valuable insights and actionable strategies that you can start implementing right away. Thank you so much for joining me today. What's one speed reading technique from this episode that you're most excited to try? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this conversation helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Super English Talks for more fascinating discussions on how to master English and supercharge your learning. Until next time, happy reading!